this is the tool currently. Now, what we don't have is, this is kind of a temporary front end for the tool. Now, the reason we've done this is because we have a lot of the different tools going on at once. So rather than have one continuous program that's constantly updated by multiple people, we've actually given people different individual conversion types. And what we've done is we've used this front end temporarily while the conversion types are in place to put it all together in one platform. So it actually, all this works as is a kind of description of the tool and a launcher. Now we're hoping that once we have everything in place, we'll get it more streamlined. But you can see from here, these are what we want in place. Not all of these are currently in place. So the types we have at the moment are Slack, Telegram, and Skype. We're currently working on Cellebrite XML exports and Bloomberg. And then we'll just continually add them. And if clients come and say, oh, we need this, we will then prioritize that. So I know I mentioned Alan and Overy. They are, currently we're talking to them about a trading platform that's not Bloomberg, it's kind of proprietary. And we said, well, there's a potential that we could, as long as the format's structured, we can build an RSMF converter to convert the chats. So that's something that might come down the line, and we'll add new data types, ones we haven't heard of. But for example, if I click on Slack, you can see here conversion of the Slack JSON file, and then we launch the converter. Make sense so far?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Great. So from here, kind of most things are default. There are some different options, and there are more we're going to put in the roadmap. So currently, and I think this is the way you guys kind of designed RSMF in mind, was it takes the JSON or other types of formats and it converts them to a RSMF file per channel or per chat conversation. And then you potentially get years worth of data in one chat channel. So down the pipeline, we're looking at ways we're going to split it out and give options, for example, by year, by month, by day, or by individual chat, because we have some clients who just want to thread it and disclose only one file. They don't want to redact everything. But at the moment, it just it converts everything into one chat room. So if, for example, we're in 4 different chat rooms and we've got private messages, we'll get one RSMF file for each of those. It splits out the RSMF, it groups them together by conversations/channels. It puts them back into the folder structure. Now, this isn't the case for some files because Skype, for example, Telegram, you just get one big folder, RSMF JSON file for everything. But for Slack, you get it broken down by days and by rooms. So this recreates the folder structure. So when you are looking in relativity at where this data was stored, you can filter on that and you can have a look at where it originally would have been. Another thing with Slack is it doesn't give you the attachments. So it actually, you have to go away, pull down the attachments from a link and then add them to the messages. And sometimes those links aren't available anymore. So we have options here where you can ignore missing messages, whereby the JSON file might reference a message folder, but that doesn't exist, whether the client's removed it or it hasn't been exported or there's some sort of corruption. This will continue if it doesn't find that folder. And all of this is logged, so we can see if anything was skipped over. This is what skips the missing attachments, but by default we run it without this and then we see what happens. Just most of the time it's just going to run without issue because we get everything. And then we've got some other options here about splitting out. These are all default. This is about foreign language. At the moment, we pass out foreign language as it is, so it displays in relativity, but there is an option here to put into quoted printable encoding. So all we need to do is find our file path. Sorry, I need to hide the Skype bar, which is covering everything. I'm going to quit that because I can't close it. Sorry, it's just the Skype give control bar is over all the.
No worries.
Okay, so this is just a native export from Slack. So you can see here, these files tell Slack how the underlying data is built, and each of these is a room broken out by date. So we need to rebuild that. So we just take the input path and the output path. And we now convert that. So that's stringing together all the messages into individual rooms. It's pulling down the attachments, and it's just assigning like user details from the user JSON and so on. So that should be done in a second. It's not a huge export. So we're currently running this over a message of 1.5 million messages, so that can take a while, especially it's pulling down around 20,000 attachments. So this is the new data. So we no longer have those files because they're not needed, and inside the folder structure is an RSMF file. So I'm just going to change this quickly to EML. So if I open it in Outlook, I can see this opens as a message. We've got, by the way, this is a Star Wars data set. So if you see any funny Star Wars pictures or who they're from and to, it's just because it's demo data. Therefore, it's a bit more interesting than M1.
I thought it was because you saw my Skype picture, but never mind.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. I completely changed everything when I saw your Skype picture in the background. So you can see here it tells you who joined the channel, what they've said. In here is the underlying RSMF data and also any attachments. So we can see here there's 3 JPEGs. So should we want to give it to an opposing party or process it in our non-Rel 1 environment, we can do that, and it will act just like an email, which is great because it gives us the opportunity to obviously not have to worry about things when we produce them, but also to use other platforms. So I'm just going to change that back. So I'm just going to copy this to relativity 1. Actually, I don't know, it's just a copy.
Really quick, while you're doing that, what you just showed us, that email, that's going to contain the full room?
Yeah, so each of these will contain, at the moment, the full room.
Got it.
So this will be everything from, as long as there was no date range put in on export, it will contain everything from the first date up until the export date. As I mentioned, some of our clients might not like that, so we are in preparation putting in different export formats by date, month, and then also putting in ways to thread it, so that if you, once it's in relativity, you can then order by date and by thread and keep everything together, so you are reading it chronologically. But when it comes to production, then you have different formats. You might not want to redact 3.5 years worth of data just to produce 6 months worth.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Great. So I'm just going to copy that to relativity 1. I didn't know how granular you wanted this in terms of do you want to see me physically process it? But I can do that. It shouldn't take long. And while I'm doing that, I can just show you the Telegram and Skype stuff if you want.
Yeah, if you have some examples that are done already, that's fine. I'm imagining you're just going to move it to your network and then kick off like a normal processing.
Great. So this has been like different iterations, but this is the kind of the final iterations of some of this stuff. So we can see here we've got Skype conversations, we've got Slack, we've got Telegram. So I'm just going to go to Slack. So this is the same data that I just converted. So when I go into it, you can obviously see that where possible, we have assigned the avatar pictures. We have the GIFs playing in line. And then we have everything also as attachments. We've given it the, so for the title, we've given it Slack channel with the channel name, chats between these people, so you can use that to filter on it. But that will also go into the from and to fields, which I can add if necessary. So as I flick through, it'll be parents and then attachments, so we have the avatars and so on. And then obviously you can expand the pictures. This is all your technology I'm showing you, but you can see that we've catered for it. We've got, so we've been trying different things. So we've got reactions, foreign languages, we've got emojis in line and GIFs and videos and so on. And then we've also got documents, so we can see that. So that's obviously the Slack data. Obviously, I'll go into Skype and Telegram quickly, but it's very much the same, you know. So some of these we haven't found a good way to show it as just, so these are things like you can put polls in Skype and stuff like that, which they're temporary. So we can see here that this was a so it's like unsupported. So if you follow this link, it doesn't go anywhere. So it might be something that we get client feedback on how they want to deal with this. Do they want us to leave it in as it is? Do they want us to put a message that we can't view this this kind of data? But at the moment, we're just leaving anything we can't pass out as the message says it is. So that's obviously a terrible version because there's nothing in there. So these are suggestions. Actually, I think this is this is a bad example. So this is when data is suggested by Skype. So when you go in there, it'll actually say, do you want to use this message? So there are some fine tunings on some of the data types, just how best to deal with it. And then this is Telegram. Oh. So you've got some things here. I think I'm showing you a. So I should have shown you the one I had prepared, because this this is a database with trial attempts in there. Let me see what the. Sorry about this.
All right, no problem.
So I think what we were trying to do, these later versions, was we're trying to embed custom metadata into it to provide more searching functionality. So it actually broke it. So I apologize about that. So we can see here, yeah, so where people will put GIFs or stickers in, then it pulls those down. Obviously videos don't play in line, but if we click on the link, it will jump us to the video to play in line. So I mean, that's kind of it at the moment. We've kind of tried to cater for the kind of common data types that we're seeing in terms of firstly what we had tools already available, and then converting those, and now moving on to things that are going to be useful. So we're seeing a lot of Slack data. We're seeing we already had converters for mobile phone data, and I know Cellebrite are bringing their own out, but that's quite a high cost, to be honest. So we're now moving on to new data formats, and obviously with mobile phones you get not just one data type, you're looking at chats, you're looking at MMS, you're looking at contact calls, that sort of thing. So we're working through those, and obviously it's something we're building on. And with each data type, we're obviously seeing new things such as those kind of polls, and working out ways to really try to display those. So I'm hoping it will be something that we improve over time. There might be some things we just can't do because they don't pull down, and it's just trying to find a way to deal with that in a way that we obviously make it reviewable for the client, but at the same time we don't hide anything. We want to show that yes, there was something here, such as a poll. We can't show you that now. How do you want to deal with it, really, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
I know you said you have Slack, Telegram, and Skype now. What were some of the ones, I think I missed it earlier, so sorry if you're making you repeat, but what were some of the ones that you said you had on your roadmap?
So the next ones, and again, this is on, so here's the drop down we're looking at. The next one we want to do is Cellebrite XML files. We get a lot of mobile phone data. Then Bloomberg, that's obviously a big one for banks. We want to look at things like Twitter, WhatsApp messages, which aren't just from a Cellebrite export, because you can just send text files from WhatsApp. So we've had clients who don't want us to collect their whole phone. Things like LinkedIn, Facebook Messenger. Again, these ones they'll view great. They will show us the chat messages. It'll be easy to review, but they're not. We don't see them as regularly as we do Cellebrite and Bloomberg. The same with Skype, really. It was just Skype was the first one we actually started because we'd created a converter, and then the guy who created the converter, we said, well, why don't you start looking at the RSMF side on some, because you know the data. So that's how it kind of started, and we've kind of just grown on there. With Slack being kind of the big one, we're getting a lot of Slack exports, and they tend to be quite large and not nice to review. So we've kind of saw that as our big push to start getting things into this format.
How was your experience working with RSMF? I know it's still pretty new, and people are trying to get their hands dirty with it a little bit, but it seems like you guys have already done some significant work with it. So how's that experience been?
I mean, for me, I really enjoy it, but I'm not a coder. So,
yeah.
So I mean, I enjoy it because it's been. Can you deal with this data? Yes. I process it in Relativity. I take a look and go, okay, that's great. Oh, in this version, emojis aren't appearing properly like they did in Skype. The avatar pictures haven't been included, and then it's just a back and forth. And really, that's why a lot of this data set, as I said, is I've kind of tried to put everything into it in terms of GIFs, images, foreign language, and it's just a back and forward. But I think at least the feedback I've got is, once the export's there, kind of this is how to display your kind of, this is how to link avatars, this is how to add attachments, then the kind of, that's done and dusted. The difficulty is just linking your fields, and there's structured data, so it's not that difficult, but everything has different fields. So Skype will display stuff that Slack doesn't. We found out that recently that the Slack export is completely different whether you have a personal account or a sort of business account. They provide completely different files, so we then had to account for both depending on what files it brings out. So for me, it's been great. I really enjoy it. But as I said, I'm not the one coding it. So
Just so I understand the workflow, so it looks like you actually have like a standalone app here. Um, um, then how are you connecting to these different data sources, and B, well, I guess managing the export that it looks like you can just go ahead and place on your network somewhere.
yes, so it really depends on the case. For some cases where we're asked to do the collections, what we will do is we will log into their Slack or their Skype and then pull down the data from there onto our network. Other times, their IT might do it. So this case I mentioned that had 1.5 million individual chats was sent to us by a client. So they zipped up the file, FTP'd it to us, we have it. So the workflow is we either pull down the data to our network or we get sent it and put it on our network. We then point and tool at that data. The data gets converted to RSMF, and then that gets put into either Relativity One or Relativity On-Prem to view as EML. If it's Rel 1, then we tend to pull down the data from Slack or from the FTP site directly to Rel 1, do the conversion on there, and then it's already on the network rather than having to copy it up to Rel 1, because then you're just duplicating work of copy it down here, convert, copy it back up. So you might as well do it all in one place. And then it's just process and review.
I'm trying to think if I have any more questions, but just workflow wise, you're connecting to these sources. Either you're doing it with your credentials, pulling the data down, exporting it, or you're having whoever you're collecting from, their IT would do it, FTP it to you. From there, you're basically browsing out to you're selecting your source type here, you're browsing out to that location. From there, when you are converting it, I'm assuming it's all back-end work from there, as far as the actual converter.
Yeah, it's all it just runs in the background, and then we point processing directly at it. Potentially, there's something we could do in the long run that cuts out some of the more manual work, but we really want to kind of get to the low-hanging fruit of getting what our clients need and the kind of varied source, and then kind of look into ways to streamline the process.
Can you maybe talk briefly about the work that's done around the conversion? Like, what are you doing to convert it from, the JSON to the RSMF, or some of those other formats to make it quote unquote relativity friendly?
I mean, that might be a question I need to put to the people who program it, but
Yeah.
It's my understanding that so we break out the first part of the RSMF file. So as it goes through the conversion, it's putting things into headers for the EML. So the RSMF still formats if they're not there, still functions, but the extracted text and the EML conversion would just be blank. So if we were to produce it to an opposing party or processing it in our on-prem, then they would just see blank. They would get a zip file with a JSON file and the attachments, but the actual text of the message and the metadata would be blank if we didn't put that in. That we then go through the JSON file, we take out, we piece together all the messages. So we look at the message ID, we thread all those together, we put in the date and times. Now, one of the things we did, which if I jump back to, is the extracted text for one, so it can be searchable, and two, when it is viewed in EML, then we can see who wrote it, the time it was sent, and the messages. If we didn't put that into text, then it wouldn't be searchable for either us running keywords over it or for someone else reviewing it outside. So we take these, we clean them up, we put, so the users, we pull out the dates and the text. We concatenate that all together into one big text file at the kind of footer of the message or the header of the message. So if I open one of these just in TextPad, you can see here that we pulled out the metadata in the top part. This then turns into the body, and then this turns into the RSMF part of the file. And then yes, so it's taking it out. We've done different iterations on terms of things that what happens when someone joins a room and what happens when someone leaves a room. As I said, with things like Slack, where the attachment is stored online, we're pulling down the attachments from the link and threading those together into a family so that you can view it as a family in Relativity. But other than that, in terms of technical information about what we're doing, I would need to kind of pass that question on to someone else and not kind of wing it.
Yeah, no worries. I think my last question that I had is, what's the client feedback been like? I think in the submission form it said that you do have a few clients using this today. Just curious on the impact it's had with them.
I mean, it's been great. It's definitely, in my eyes, the best way to review chat in Relativity. There's been nothing that's competed so far. So, I mean, I have worked on multiple different tools in multiple different formats. I've seen chat messages go in as Excels and people are reviewing it in Excel. I've seen people break it out into text files. I've seen proprietary chats or ones where it just gets threaded as metadata. So it's definitely the best way to view it in Relativity. It looks the nicest. I think it's easiest for the client to understand. It takes very little training. They can see it there. It also keeps it in Relativity. Some of the better chat tools are proprietary and are outside of Relativity, and what people want is a unified platform. They don't want to have to go to platform 1 for audio, platform 2 for chat, and platform 3 for doc review. So it's definitely the next step forward. I mean, with different integrations, and I know there's stuff coming in the future that I've heard in terms of RSMF, like splitting out, at least from what I've heard on the roadmap. So we wouldn't have to remove or split by day, month, year if we wanted to. You could do that, is my understanding. So when things like that obviously improve, it's going to just get better. But at the moment, it's definitely, the feedback is it's above and beyond any other form of in Relativity review you can have.